So yeah, anyway, right. So let's go through just some of the things that I've got down here because this is important. So yeah, we covered the BBC report there, and that I think was important. And so in February 2020, you won a court case against them, didn't you?
Yeah, what happened was that we said to the police, look, this is absolutely ridiculous, because I discovered that I'd got this thing called a non-crime hate incident. Now, nobody had heard of these non-crime hate incidents. And what's interesting about an NCHI, as we call them, is this, that you don't need to have an incident and there doesn't need to be any hate. So for a non-crime hate incident, no incident is necessary, no hate is necessary.
And no crime is necessary.
No crime is necessary, no hate, no incident. But nevertheless, on perception alone, and this can be third-party perception, as was the case with me, this was a person allegedly from down south. There was absolutely nobody who was directly offended by anything I'd said. But nevertheless, perception was that those tweets had the capability of, as the police called it, showing hatred towards and intending to cause distress to the trans community. So in the absence
of
a crime, that then becomes a non-crime hate incident. Now, what we then found out is that there are 200,000 of these non-crime hate incidents. You're bound to have at least one.
Yeah, I'm going to have to put in a request to find out, aren't I?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, subject access request, and you will find out.
Yeah.
Now, these things don't sit benignly on a police record, on a police database. They are utterly malignant, because for up to 6 years, a non-crime hate incident can, and probably will, appear on an enhanced DBS check if you apply for a job.
I mean, this sounds deeply Soviet to me. Some party member has had an incident of wrongthink, so it's gone on a bureaucratic record, and so the party leader can check when next time he's moving people around in his cabinet or whatever. Oh, who has had the wrongthink? Who is in trouble? This seems like the sort of thing that a communist society would use.
It's exactly that. I've just recently read a book by Anna Fowler called Stasiland, and in there she recounts the story of a woman who was a linguist, multilinguist actually, who kept finding out that she was going along to try and get a job. She was interviewing very, very well. She was clearly very, very qualified. They liked her at interview. And then a few days later, she would get a phone call or letter through the post saying, unfortunately, not on this occasion. It turned out she'd got a non-crime hate incident against her name.
And it was based on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the problem here is the police don't have to tell you you've got an NCHI. Okay, they don't have to tell you that. So you can be applying for jobs in blissful ignorance and wondering why you're not getting them, or why you're not getting a promotion, or whatever. Or they might tell you. Either way, there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing at all. We went to court. We took the chief constable of Humberside to court, because that was the force that approached me. But the defence of the chief constable was that they were following national guidance set out by the College of Policing.
Right.
So we did the sensible thing and took the College of Policing to the High Court as well. Now, in an incredible ruling, Mr. Justice Knowles, the High Court judge, ruled that I had absolutely been abused by Humberside. In fact, he called them the Stasi, the Gestapo, and the Checker. That's 3 in 1. The 3 worst possible policing regimes in history. Yeah. That's Humberside. Yeah. Okay. But that was for the recording and the contacting me and the going on national television, etc., etc. Say how horrible I was. But weirdly, he said that the guidance which Humberside had followed was legal. So
where did that come from?
Well, we've no idea. So the College of Policing guidance is legal, but following the guidance leads you to being called a Nazi. So that being illogical, we took the College of Policing to the Court of Appeal in March of this year. And we're currently waiting for the ruling on that, because what we want to do is throw out the guidance. Because if we throw out the guidance, we throw out all of those 200,000 non-crime hate incidents, and we free up people to be able to speak without the fear of some random nutter reporting you to the police and you ending up with a criminal non-criminal record, because that's what it is.
Oh, it's mad.
My non-crime hate incident says this. It's headed crime report. So immediately you think this is something to do with a crime.
Yeah.
It then names me as the suspect. Okay.
The suspected
the
limerick
suspect.
retweeter.
Yeah. And then then it says offence,
Not an offence, but carry on.
transgender hate. And then down in the bottom somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
it says type crime, non-crime, down there in the small print.
I mean, okay, so this to me, like, it sounds like the police force is being run by social justice warriors, like radical leftists, who are instituting some kind of tyrannical Soviet regime based on their view of transgenderism.
Yeah,
Am
it's
I
not-
overstating that?
No, you're not. You're not at all. Absolutely, because the person who reported me, okay, now, one thing, we have to call them Mrs. B because
We could just call them informers.
well, yeah, but the one that the one that sort
Yeah.
of dobbed me in it, they were granted the title Mrs. B. The anonymous Mrs. B.
So you don't even get to face your accuser.
No, not at all.
That's
not at all.
very
Now,
interesting.
what's very interesting? What's very interesting is that Humberside Police redacted the crime reports, the non-crime crime reports.
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
and when the judge said, this is not how we do it in England. What's all this redaction?
Yeah.
And they said, oh, we've redacted because Mrs. B we've assessed as being very vulnerable, so we need to protect. Anyhow, the judge wasn't having any of it and said, tomorrow morning I want to see the unredacted version. And
Good.
guess what? In the unredacted version, it said assessment made, no risk. So the Humberside Police had lied to the court. Now then, I know why they lied to the
go
court,
on.
because since I've discovered who Mrs. B is, I can't tell you who Mrs. B is because of a court order, and I will be thrown in prison. But Mrs. B has a history of talking about how they're going to do people in who disagree with them. They claim to be a member of an organised crime group. They claim to be part of the Hells Angels. They told a very well-known Jewish journalist who used to write for the NME that she would look great in a gas chamber.
And you're the Nazi.
Yeah, and I'm the Nazi. I'm the Nazi.
Jesus.
So this person gets absolute, unconditional anonymity and protection. Okay. I'm the one with the non-crime hate incident that I now carry with me for the next 6 years. And if I want to get rid of it, I'm risking £200,000
Bloody hell.
to do this. It's a lot of money to go to the High Court and then the Court of Appeal. But this person, Mrs. B, gets absolute anonymity. I also have a leaked email between the Chief Constable and Mrs. B, in which even after the court case, the Chief Constable was personally giving Mrs. B his assurance that under no circumstance would he reveal who Mrs. B was.
Even
now I
lying to the
know who Mrs. B is, and I'll tell you now. Once this
Well, hang on, we'll just call Mrs. B the average Labour voter.
Okay, we can do. But this is what I'm prepared to do. This is so important. This whole thing around secrecy.
Yeah.
It's so important that once the Court of Appeal thing is over and done, and hopefully we will win, I will reveal who Mrs. B is, and I will do it very, very publicly. And at that point, the court will have to arrest me. And then I will conduct a defence in which I will say, this is the reason that I went public, because Humberside Police hid their identity. Humberside Police lied to the court, and the person who they were championing in order to persecute me has this history of threatening violence. Now, that's the type of witness that you're relying on for these non-crime hate incidents. I am personally prepared to go to jail in order to bring down the idiots who think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, that is just disgraceful. And it's exactly as you say that the judge mentioned, this is not how things are done in England. This is wrong.
No, it's not. Now, the judge saw straight through Mrs. B and described Mrs. B as presenting evidence from the outer edges of rationality. He said there was no chance whatsoever that my tweets indicated that I was going to commit some future crime. None whatsoever. But nevertheless, the guidance is still in force. I still have a hate crime incident. And get this, in October 2020, so emboldened were the College of Policing by their little victory at the High Court that they republished their hate crime guidance. Now they can go into schools, and a school child who is reported by a third party, somebody they're chatting to in the playground perhaps, maybe a teacher, maybe a parent, they too can have a non-crime hate incident against their name.
Children.
Against children, yeah, absolutely. Against children.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So that's where we are, Carl. And we'll talk about this whole thing about secrecy in the next section because it's chilling.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I was going to go through some of that, but yeah, I think you've covered pretty much everything. I like the way that Judge Knowles said, "We've never lived in Orwellian society." And in response to this, Helen Belcher, who co-founded Transmedia Watch, said, "I think trans people will be worried it could become open season on us because the court didn't really define what the threshold for acceptable speech was," which is basically a way of saying if we can't have an Orwellian police state, it's open season on trans people.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely nonsense.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, completely. They don't understand that we have a tradition of common law. Now, this is where it's so fantastic to be born and bred an Englishman, or to be an adopted Englishman, because you're now living here. You get to live under common law. Now, common law basically says that I am free to think, speak, do, and act right up until the point where the law specifically says this far and no further. That's it. We don't live under the Napoleonic Roman idea of permissions, where everything that we do is based on the state allowing us to do it, although during this last year or so it's been getting very much that way, of course.
Very much.
But this is what happens in Britain, so we don't need a definition. We've got if anybody wants to target a trans person, they can't do it in my name, because that becomes harassment. It's malicious communication.
We've already got laws that protect people, everyone, from this.
Precisely. I got these non-crime. I got this evidence back. The things that I tweeted. Okay, and I looked through it with some trepidation because I did wonder if I'd said something stupid. Anyway, the things that I'd said were things like, if Caitlyn Jenner has always been a man, who won the 1976 men's decathlon?
Oh, well, there's been a woman, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, a woman then.
Yeah. Another one was.
So how was she allowed into the men's decathlon?
Yeah. How does that work? Another one was. Is Transgender Day of Remembrance a thing? Then I didn't know. That was another one. There was another one. There was another one where simply referencing Dame Jenny Murray was classed as a non-crime hate incident.
What?
Because
Go on, yeah.
Because Dame Jenny Murray had been pilloried for writing in the Sunday Times, I think it was, that while she respected trans people, that she didn't believe humans could change sex. Now, I just happened to mention the name Dame Jenny Murray in a tweet about the Oxford students going and pillaring the students who'd gone to see Steve Bannon.
Yeah.
And I put the anti-Jenny Murray lot are out, spitting and screaming at students going to see Steve Bannon. And this was classed as transphobic hate because I'd mentioned Dame Jenny Murray without saying the dangerous transphobe Dame Jenny
Right, so
Murray.
if you weren't condemning in the same breath, you are complicit.
Yes, that's precisely it. Another one was Sheffield women know the difference between lads and lasses. This was a non-crime hate incident which, without necessary intervention, was going to lead to Auschwitz by way of Stephen Lawrence. Yeah. Another one was simply this. Her. H-U-H. Her.
That was a non-crime hate.
That was a non-crime hate incident. Now, what I was saying her to, I've no idea because it had been redacted as so much was. So unless I was saying, unless I was answering a tweet that said, all those that want to gas trans people say her, it's difficult to imagine how her could possibly be construed as a non-crime hate incident.
It's just so ludicrous. And the thing is that Dame Jenny Murray, like you're saying, that she doesn't believe people can change their sex. That's not even the contention of the trans lobby. They think you can change your gender. Your sex is coded into all of your cells. You can't do anything about that. It's based on your chromosomes.
Except if you're a clownfish, apparently.
Well, okay, maybe I don't know anything about clownfish, but at least in the case of humans. But the argument from the transgender lobby is that you can change your gender expression. So that doesn't even contravene their own ideology. But right, okay, so let's go on to talk about Fair Cop. Because this is an organisation what you set up.
I set it up with Rob Jessel. Yes.
Right, okay. Can we get the Fair Cop information up? Because I was just hoping you could tell us about it. Why did you set? Well, I can tell why you set it up. Don't get me wrong. But what it is that Fair Cop does.
Well, we set it up initially. It was Rob Jessel, a friend of mine, who came to me and said, "Look, we've got to do something." And I think in his mind,
something must be done.
Something must be done. Yeah, it was. Let's get some banners and let's go and march outside the Police Federation competence and go, yeah, boo, hiss, and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, that was great. That was a great starting point. But I think we realised that the way to actually make a difference with any of this is to conduct lawfare.
Yeah.
So in order to conduct a...
I mean, they are, so you may as well...
Yeah. In order to go to judicial review, you have to have some form of presence. You have to have some form of organisation, because it's a long, nasty, scary process. So we gathered people around us, lawyers, journalists, few politicians, etc., and we set up Fair Cop, basically to support me in the judicial review. But then, as we realised that this was affecting far more than just Harry Miller, it became the organisation that challenges the police whenever they step over the line ideologically. So we're less bothered about, was a stop and search right or wrong, or blah blah blah.
They already have procedures for that.
Not those operational things. But when the police step over the line ideologically, this is when Fair Cop step in. So I spend my life writing to chief constables, reminding them of their duty of candour, reminding them what it means to be political and why they must not be engaged in politics in any way, shape or form, and threatening them with further judicial review. I am a chief constable's absolute worst nightmare, because in fact so much so that the chief constable of Humberside got his legal department to write to me last week, begging me not to write to him anymore, and that all correspondence should now go to the legal department, because he needed shielding, the poor thing.
Well, it sounds like it, because I mean, if he makes one wrong statement, that can be used against him. He's got to be very careful with you.
Yeah, of course he does. Yeah.
Right, okay. Well, let's talk about some of the cases that Fair Cop have covered then, because I think some of these are quite interesting. If we can get right, so what's this the complaint that you made against the LGBT Police UK network?
Okay. So, well, for starters, you've got to understand what the National LGBT Police Network is.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Okay,
I can take a guess, but
Okay, it's a secret police force.
Right. Okay.
It's a national secret police force, and we know it's secret because when we get hold of the police and say, "Could we please have the collar number of the person who tweeted this?"
Yeah. So for anyone who's listening and can't see the tweet, in fact, we can go to if we can go to the next link, we've got the tweet as an archive. Here. So someone called Caroline had said, in response to the National LGBT Police Network tweeting something, she'd said, "This is balanced, debate is good, thank you, but biological sex is binary and immutable and matters profoundly for the safety of women." True. And the National LGBT Plus Police Network replied with, "Our network in no way condones or supports any comments made from your account, Caroline. We believe that trans men are men, trans women are women, and non-binary people are fabulous." So I just want to be clear, right? Now, for someone like me who does analysis of this sort of stuff, this is not only a blatantly political statement, but it also sounds a lot like a profession of faith. We believe.
Yeah,
we believe.
That's exactly what it is. But if you go back to the previous slide where it said, anybody who criticises us, we see you, we have reported you.
Yes, okay. And then you have this one here. "We have a short message for all of those posting hateful comments. We see you, we've reported your comments. We won't stop supporting trans and non-binary people."
Yeah, exactly.
So the police are tweeting out how they're coming for you.
Yeah, and so when you say, "Okay, can we please have the the collar number, the identity of the officer, and the force who tweeted that, please?" They say, "Don't know what you're talking about. No, we're not telling you. We're not engaging with you."
How is it that can't become public knowledge, though? Like, what justification do they think they have?
Well, they don't. They just hide, and they're being protected by chief constables. So I know for a fact, because they published it on their website, that the National LGBT Police is chaired by the T commander. I think he's a chief superintendent, actually, of the City of London Police. So, he's employed by the City of London Police. So I wrote to the City of London Police and said, "Your officer, your senior officer, is responsible for an organisation that has tweeted this. I need to know what he thinks he's doing. I need him to be held accountable and for him to give me the name or to take responsibility for these tweets." And they wrote back to me and said, "Yeah, he is the chair, but when he's chairing that, he's not really one of us. He's not really City of London Police anymore. He's doing it as something else." Well, what is he doing it as? Because he's clearly a police officer on the National LGBT Police website, he's there in your uniform.
Yeah.
They're saying, we see you, we've reported you. This is clearly a police account. It claims to be a national account. How do we hold it accountable?
Yeah.
And they just, and they said to us, well, if you don't like us, sue us. So
Okay.
that's what we're going to do.
Good. Because we can't be having secret ideological police in this country. That's unacceptable.
Well, I've written to every chief constable in the country and said, who are your national LGBT police members who are tweeting and actively have a public-facing voice with us? And they've all come back and said, we can't tell you because of data protection concerns. Every single one.
Data protection concerns.
Yeah. They're more interested in protecting the secret police force than they are in following Peelian principles that the public are the police and the police are the public. They completely ignore all of the code of ethics, which says that the police are supposed to be accountable, they're supposed to be transparent, they're supposed to be helpful, they're supposed to engage when we ask a question.
Well, they're meant to be our police, not the police of an occupying ideology.
You say occupying ideology. That's exactly what this is, because the National LGBT Police Network is part of an EU police network, which takes its orders from Ursula von der Leyen and has adopted the manifesto of Rainbow Europe, which comes out of the European Commission. Right. And we know this because they tell us this on a podcast called, very cleverly, get this, The Thin Pink Line.
Oh, God.
You get it?
Yeah,
Get it?
I totally do,
It's like a twist on the thin blue
Thin
line.
Blue line,
very
absolutely.
clever. Yeah.
Okay, so this is something that you would think that Brexit would have severed. You would have thought that the Conservative government, the Brexiteer Conservative government, would have made sure that this doesn't exist.
You would think so, but it does exist. We are being policed by an EU-dominated secret police force whose head or co-chair is a senior officer with the City of London Police, and the City of London Police have told us to get knotted because it's got nothing to do with them. That, for me, is the very definition of a secret police force. We wrote to the College of Policing, and the College of Policing said, nothing to do with us, Gov. And every single chief constable...
Well, who's responsible for this secret police?
Well, if you don't know, it's secret, isn't it?
Well, that's the point, isn't it? So, and it literally is, as you say, designed to obscure accountability.
It's designed to obscure accountability. So we go, okay, you've said, we see you, we have reported you. Right, one, we want to know who you've seen, what they've been reported for, who they've been reported to, and who has done the reporting. You can't get any of that information. So we're simply sitting here with feeling the chilling effect, wondering on which database do we sit as a hater? Because this National LGBT Police Network is a para-police force. It's a occupying EU police force. And chief constables are terrified, absolutely terrified of it, which is why they won't engage with us.
Unbelievable. If you enjoyed this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full broadcast live every weekday at 1 p.m. UK time on lotuseaters.com.